Hello and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Catherine James. I am your host for today's webinar. Joining me on this program is our co-host, Kathy Burnett, who will manage Zoom controls, chat, etc. We also have Maria Bush, who is acting as the now Director of Webinars. Welcome. We are so happy that you've joined us for today's event, Trauma-Informed Coaching with speaker Brad Hardie. Now, I want to tell you a little bit about our presenter, Brad. Brad Hardie, MCC, CTP, MP, NLP, is an accomplished master certified coach. As a certified trauma-informed counselor and certified trauma-informed professional, Brad possesses specialized knowledge and skills in addressing psychological trauma. He is also equipped with a trauma-informed coaching certification. Brad's in-depth knowledge, skill set, and intuition not only allows him to offer trauma-informed support to his clients, but also create and facilitate trauma-informed coaching materials and courses. An interesting fact about Brad is he is the 13th child of 13 children. And we believe that maybe this very likely prepared him for the work that he does today and the delightful manner in which he accepts and interacts with others. Also, I will say personally, over the past 4 years, Brad has been one of the most influential and inspirational people in my life. I am delighted to introduce to you my teacher, my coach, and my friend, Brad Hardie. Welcome, Brad.
Thank you.
It's great to have you here. And now I am going to turn it over to you.
Thank you so much. And mostly friend these days. You have been also a teacher for me, so I want to credit that. Thank you so much, Catherine. Thank you, Kathy, Maria, the others that are here today. I'm on a schedule of things that I so want to share with all of you. So we'll get right into the meat and potatoes of it. Before I begin, what I like to do with all of my sessions is that I just want to take a few moments and recognize some of the topic that we're going to be going through today can sometimes stir up emotions. So I just want to invite us to take a little bit of time and have a nice loving kindness meditation, not only to ourselves, but also to other people. And this is really a meta meditation. So I'm going to invite you just to take some nice deep breaths, regardless of where you are. I know some of you have come in, it's in the morning, it's the afternoon, it can be the evening, and you've already had a day. Some of you are getting prepared for your day, and some of you will continue on with your day. So let's just take a nice few moments of nice deep breaths. Some nice deep exhales so that we're getting the vagus nerve online, which is that hugest part of the parasympathetic. And just relax into this moment, this time that we have together to learn a little bit about trauma-informed, to have an understanding. And just understand also that you're all invited no matter how you feel today. You have a space within this place that we're going to create this education. And just relaxing, taking those nice deep breaths. Stretch your neck if you need to, back and forth, side to side. Pull those shoulders back to open those chests. And as you take another nice deep breath, please come to this learning as you see ready. So again, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you're showing up from. It's a pleasure to be here. I wanted to just talk quickly about moving the human spirit and our particular vision. We're very proud to be the global leader in trauma-informed coaching certification and training. It was something that the ICF didn't consider prior to our putting a program together, and we're just so grateful that they have now considered it as something that coaches can do, especially since the pandemic. we're widely needed as trauma-informed coaches. So as a pioneer in the field, MTHS, we proudly hold that title of the world's first ICF accredited trauma-informed coaching course. We do numerous coaching courses now and work with several different people. We have a real commitment to making a difference. We're actively engaging with trauma-informed environments, trauma survivors and families. We're providing not only support, but also empowering some of them. We do that through different areas, Anishinaabe, First Nations, Métis. We do it through corporations. We do it through trainings. We do it through the coaching world by developing and delivering coach trainings as well in all different ways. So we really want to take today and explore some of what's shaping the landscape of trauma-informed recovery and resilience. And so I was quite happy to be asked here to do that. Who we are. Thank you. Catherine has introduced me. I do want to just tip my hat to my business partner, Susan Hogarth. She's also a PCC Master Practitioner of Neurolinguistic Programming, Trauma-Informed Coach Certified, Emotional Intelligence. Brad and Susan and I became very good friends as students while we were attending coaching college in Vancouver. We had mutual interest in the human psychology, communication, and of course, the impact of trauma and what that had on our clients. And the thing that brought Susan and I together was she used to work with gifted children and parents who were presenting quite a few challenges within the family system. And they mostly were stemming from traumatic imprint. And my work was much more about delivering stress and chaos management within inside organizations and also within my coaching practice. So we had quite a few conversations around the impact of trauma itself and how we felt a little bit limited by the fact that we weren't able to pursue trauma. And we were curious if a trauma-informed lens that was respectful to the International Coaching Federation ethical guidelines might actually be able to be worked out. So that was a little bit about why we focused on the idea of needing trauma-informed coaching. And also, of course, lately to help bridge a little bit of that gap with our overwhelmed medical system, which we're finding a lot of our clients are coming from spaces where they can no longer, I don't know what it's like in the particular areas you are, where I'm at in British Columbia, Canada, there's a bit of an issue with trying to find proper care with psychologists, therapists, counselors, especially since the COVID, because the pandemic has really brought forward some maladaptive behaviors that we didn't see prior to this. And I'm just going to, before we get moving a little bit further, I'm going to ask Catherine if she'd be willing to put the poll in and just ask the question of how many of you have actually heard of trauma-informed coaching. So if you would be able to do that for me, Catherine, that would be great. So how many of you have heard of trauma-informed coaching? Oh, great. It's looking like quite a few of you have actually heard about it. Wonderful.
Yeah, we're looking at 77% at a yes right now.
Nice.
We are just about done. So we've got 74% that has heard about it and 26% has not.
Okay. Well, for those that you have heard about it, fantastic. And for those of you that have not heard about it, welcome. You're here and we will go through some of what it's about. So trauma-informed coaching operates on this fundamental understanding. Let me get that my little poll out of there. That trauma can be profoundly influence an individual's thoughts. So what we do in trauma-informed coaching is we have this approach of coaching that considers the potential impact of trauma on an individual's life. And what we're doing is we're seeking to create these spaces, these safe spaces with trust and safety to support or have a supportive environment for clients who have experienced trauma. So the primary goal, of course, is for us to be able to coach and help clients heal and build resilience. And in doing that, we're actively involved in the client's decision-making process. We know that they have everything that they need inside of them. We do gentle guidance and empathetic listening. We hold spaces that we are able to understand and cultivate a sense of agency for the client. And the biggest piece, of course, of trauma-informed coaching is that we understand how impact happens. We respect the autonomy of the client. But again, the biggest one is holding them in a way that is capable and whole as we work through it. So I don't want to call it completely holistic style coaching, but there is a nuance that comes with trauma-informed coaching after we have the education around the sympathetic, parasympathetic nervous system, how the body reacts, the fear center, and all of the information of psychoeducation that can help us then work within the realm of trauma in a way that is accepting and also beneficial to the client themselves. So today I'm just going to look at a few of the pieces of information that we do cover in our extended courses that may help or engage you in thinking about trauma differently. So traumatic events, I love this quote by Judith Herman. Traumatic events are extraordinary, not because they occur rarely, but rather because they overwhelm the ordinary human adaptation to life. So what she's referring to there is that it's not that these traumatic events are extraordinary. It's that no matter what happens to the person, depending on who they are, where they came from, and how they were raised, it's how they can adapt to the environment they find themselves in. So it's that adaptation, the body's overwhelmed process that we think about when it comes to trauma. So we know things about trauma. We know that trauma is a deeply distressing or disturbing experience. If you look it up in the dictionary, that's what you'll see. In my work, what we do is we categorize these different traumas. There is an acute trauma, there's a chronic trauma, and there's complex trauma. And one of the reasons we're interested in knowing what type of trauma the client may be experiencing is because sometimes we work in unison with clinical practice. And if we know which type of trauma the client is bringing to the table, we have a much better understanding of what type of impacts may be happening to the client themselves. So when we think about acute trauma, we're referring to a psychological or emotionally distressing experience that is a result of a single incident. And it's often sudden and unexpected. So that's those traumatic events that come from single things. If we think about natural disasters, accidents, assaults, witnessing some form of violence. So while the event itself may be brief, the effects of what happened inside of the body and in the mind can manifest immediately or shortly after the event. So that's what we refer to as that acute thing. And we can see symptoms of acute trauma, which include things such as shock, disbelief, anxiety, flashbacks, sometimes nightmares or night terrors. When we think about chronic trauma, this is recurring as a result of a repeated exposure to traumatic events. So we call it a repeated and prolonged exposure. And this type of trauma is often associated with an ongoing situation. Domestic violence is one of it, child abuse, prolonged periods of warfare or conflict. I think about things such as racism, genocide. We look at those and those are prolonged, repeated things that we have seen in the course of our life. Residential school, we think about these things. So because the trauma is sustained over time, individuals may develop what's called a different trauma moving into complex. So the chronic trauma happens with repeated and prolonged. Complex starts when we have a prolonged and repeated, but we're exposed to multiple different types of trauma. And these are ones, if we think about complex trauma, it's categorized as a multiple traumatic events. So not just one or two. It's oftentimes interpersonal nature. There is abuse and neglect. It can be within say, a war-torn country. We can have civil disrest. We can look at it such as family, community, or institutional trauma, and that can run over periods of time where we're being exposed to numerous different things that are traumatic to the system. So understanding the distinction between these types of traumas actually is essential for us to provide an opportunity or the appropriate support and the interventions for people. And in trauma-informed coaching, what we do is we approach each of these with the understanding of how deep the impact may be within the client themselves. The other thing that we look at, of course, as a result of some of these traumas is some of the noticing of traumatic imprint. So there's 4 different categories of how we notice trauma show up in the body. Sometimes we refer to these as maladaptive behaviors. Some of them are cognitive, and those are things such as intrusive thoughts, again, nightmares or night terrors, flashbacks, brain fog from what we refer to in neuroscience as an amygdala hijacking. And that's when the fear center of the brain comes online. And what happens, of course, the prefrontal cortex gets taken offline because the body moves into a fight or flight position. And what happens, of course, as a result of that is brain fog. We see memory loss, disorientation, or confusion. We also see extreme emotions because as humans, as mammals, our life is an experience comes from the environments and our sensory system, and that's our thalamus. And the thalamus, of course, is the emotional center. So anytime something's running through it, especially if it's a fear brain, we can see extreme emotions. Mood swings. We have also behavioral things that we look at: dissociation, isolation, withdrawal, avoidance, loss of interest in things, a numbing effect, isolation. Physical things that we notice, especially in clients that we work with: hypervigilance. Some are startled or edgy. Exhaustion. So there's fatigue that is with this. They can have eating disruptions, sleeping disturbances, loss of sex drive because of the constant hypervigilance, which puts our body into a fight or flight constant, which also stops the organs from functioning properly in the body. And we also have body aches and pains. Those are physical side effects of a traumatic imprint. And when we think about some of the psychological, we're looking at things such as OCD, emotional detachment, again, the numbing, depression. People can experience shock or disbelief, irritability, anger and anxiety, and some even experience panic attacks, which is our body wanting us to be safe, but still not feeling safe. So it really has that positive purpose. And Catherine, I'm just going to take a poll on whether or not people realize that some of these are reactions that may be related to the traumatic imprint, and just see where they set with that particular piece of information, if you wouldn't mind. So we're asking the question, did you have an idea that some of these might be from a traumatic imprint? We're not saying they all are. We obviously go through life with different things happening and occurring. But as a poll and having a look at it, we will just see what's coming up and what is something that you may or may not have noticed that's oriented toward a traumatic imprint.
So this question was answered in our last poll, because I had it on the same slide, but it looks like 88%.
Oh, perfect. Oh, that's fantastic. Okay.
88% are at a yes. They did realize that some of these reactions may be related to a traumatic imprint.
Beautiful.
8% are at a no, and 4% are non-applicable.
Perfect. Thank you for that efficiency. That's very helpful. Oh, that little poll just does not want to leave me alone. Thank you for that, Catherine. So what I'd like to do at this time is we are going to do a quick breakout. And we're going to have a look at a few questions. We're going to put you in a room with a couple of other people, and I'm just going to ask you about noticing trauma. So have you noticed changes in behavior, intense emotional reactions? And these are in a person that you might be working with, family member, or a client. So have you noticed this as you've moved through your life recently? Have you noticed changes in behavior, intense emotional reactions in someone in your close proximity, your family member, or a client? Any unexplained physical symptoms? Have relationships of family and friends become strained or untrusting? Are we hearing that in our clients, in family members, or in another person? And any additional relational awareness of noticing trauma? So what I'm going to do is I am going to pop this into the chat for you. Barry, yes.
Thanks. Just a quick question, at least for me, and maybe others have this, and that is, if we had a scale of trauma to no trauma, a lot of trauma to a little trauma, like what is trauma? And what I mean by that is, okay, the domestic violence, they saw somebody murdered. Okay, that's clearly probably a big trauma imprint. And then there's the like, pardon the expression, the regular stuff that happens growing up that we think it's not really. And so I'm just curious, and maybe you have some thoughts now or later, like how do we make that distinction?
I
Thank you.
love it. Yeah. So when it comes to trauma, we talk about it as being completely personal. So if you think about a traumatic event, it is personal to the extent of how the person, their economical, social, cultural, how they were raised, their psychological, philosophical, and spiritual, and also the type of trauma that they've gone through. So when we think about trauma, I think about it, when I first was getting into it, and it's sort of like this evaluation where it's like, oh, come on now, that can't be, that's not trauma. But what we're doing is we're only evaluating it through our own existence. So I'm a Gestaltian by nature. So I believe that we only experience life through how we perceive it. So we take each individual, because trauma doesn't discriminate, we take every course of trauma or every movement of trauma and take it seriously, because I'm unable to determine whether or not that person's experience wasn't as traumatic. So we remove the judgment is the easy answer, and we treat each person as if something has impaired or happened to them that they did not want to, but still it existed.
Thank you
So
for that.
yeah,
Appreciate
it's very hard to distinguish between them as far of whose is more, whose is less. So we tend to do it in that particular way. So, welcome back from that little moment with your fellow coaches. Any insights, thoughts? What came up for you? Anyone want to share?
Hi, I'm Miriam, and I want to share something that I said in the process, which is that 3 months ago I didn't know squat about trauma, and then 2.5 months ago I began really taking a deep dive into it, and I told folks in the group that I've been coaching almost since the ICF started, and um, and for me now, I'm seeing it, here, there, and everywhere. And it's really timely that this thing is really taking off now. And for me, it's, exciting. I get excited about new learning and new growth. But I could talk a lot about it, but I think there are a lot of slow, expensive ways to heal it. I haven't found anything yet that I think really does the job on a timely basis in a cost-effective way. And I'd be interested in your point of view on that. That's all.
Yeah, thank you for that. So it's interesting when we look at some of the work that we do as coaches, we've been notoriously looking at how we make shifts within hour to an hour and a half sessions. And with the commitment from our clients, we certainly can. And the other interesting thing to your point, Miriam, is that I have had several conversations with people that have spent numerous amounts of years shifting and trying to find blame, shame, determine what put them into a place of woundology or victimization. We want to know the responsibility. Who do we put the responsibility on? And I find one of the biggest shifts that people have within the trauma-informed coaching work is when they realize that they're in control of what is going to happen in their lives. And I think a big piece of it is when we are able to get people to a space where they understand that, yes, something has happened, and B, I don't need to become that thing that happened. And then we work with them to move to a place of, what do you want instead then? So I'm with you. It's like, it's such a beautiful place to be able to release the past, which we were just talking about when you were in the breakout room, that we have absolutely no control over.
Mhm.
So many of us live in our memory of the past or our memory of a future that hasn't occurred yet, as opposed to living in the present moment, the here and now. So a huge piece of the work we do is definitely in bringing people to the present moment so that they live a more fulfilling life within their nervous system and within their idea of what their life should be. So nice. Thank you for that.
Okay.
Any other insights or shares or comments? Lucky lotto numbers? Yes, Carol.
So I wanted to ask you about releasing the past. How far into the past you go? Because we've all been trained about, not diving into the past as coaches. So just a
Perfect.
little
Yeah,
bit of insight there.
Yep, perfect. We don't go to the past at all. The only time in trauma-informed coaching we ever go to the past is if the client can't leave something. So we say, what is the positive that you need to bring to the present moment? Otherwise, there's no work to be done there for us. So we don't want to build a bridge between the pain of what's existing and what the client's trying to do. So yeah, we don't deal with it at all. So the question for us is always, what would you like to do with the information? So, and that's in the present moment. Do you want to release it, reframe it, or would you like to let go of what the narrative is so that we can move on? So it's really bringing we're in core competency 7, where we're bringing an awareness to the client that what it is that is weighing them down and they're holding on to will no longer be able to let them go forward unless they release that anchor. Of course, it's, not as easy as the one swing of my hand in my conversation, but we're good coaches. We do that work. Miriam.
One of the things that I've become aware of is that it's one thing if I tell my mind and reframe and create a different reality through my mind, but the somatic memory is largely unconscious until we bring it to the front. And I'm wondering about how, as coaches, do we work with that somatic memory when it comes forward? And have you found anything that really does the job somatically? I mean, they say EMDR and all that, but again, that's long and slow and expensive.
Yeah, the work that we tend to move into is we do somatic work, and it's mostly in, we're dealing with things such as state changes, breath work, grounding methods. So we go through we have 4 different sections in the courses that we deliver that talk about how to work with the client and move them into these. The understanding for us is that awareness around something occurring is how we resolve it. So unless we can bring awareness to that, and for the client, and the client has their own awareness of it, that's how we begin. And sometimes that's about the body itself. And of course, we have our best control, or the number one way that we move towards that is our breath, because as good coaches, we regulate the whole session through our tone of voice and how I talk to you and how I'm addressing how we're working together. But also if I see you starting to move in a direction, I don't mimic that direction. I stay calm and I set the stage for it, but I also take some nice deep breaths. And what happens to humans is that we regulate our breath. It helps people co-regulate. So if you've ever noticed a bag of kittens, they all breathe the same when they're sleeping. Humans are no different. We can help others regulate that way. So simply start breathing. I'm just going to take a couple of nice deep breaths here. And you hold that, and the client will regulate with you. And then, of course, we move forward with the other techniques if they're needed. I hope that was helpful. There was one other hand that was up there. I want to honor that someone's hand came up before I move forward. Okay, then I shall pursue the next video, or the next share of my screen. So, really what we're talking here about as coaches is something that we do now. It's just with the deeper knowledge of how trauma shows up, what it looks like, and how people have been affected by it. But we're still doing some of the basic things that we always do. Without trust and safety, I like to say that there's no foundation for anything meaningful. If we don't have trust and safety with a client, we have nothing that's going to be meaningful in a session. So it's the bedrock upon where everything else is built. If we're not able to, just what Mary and I were talking about, create a space that is trusting and safe with the client through our tone and body language, then we're not going to be able to move them forward within a session. And we think about some of our ability to do what is coach aware when it comes to trauma, and that is creating that safe environment. We hold space for a deeper connection and conversation to happen. We also build trust gradually. One of the things about trauma imprint is that we see, because the person doesn't know why their body reacted the way they did. And if they don't have psychoeducation around bodily reactions, they don't even trust themselves. So we really have to spend time bringing them to a place of trust. And really, it can be gradual. The other one that I love working with is choice. Sometimes when we're working with people who have had a traumatic imprint, they've spent a lot of time going to clinicians, doctors, places where they're telling them what they have to do, how they have to get rid of it, how they should live their lives, what they should move towards, what they should move away from. And as a result of that, what can happen is we feel like we're quite out of control or quite out of choice. So bringing them back to this space where they can actually have an opportunity to understand that choice is within them, that'll be something that will carry them forward. We demonstrate compassion. In our course, we talk about empathy, compassion, and sympathy. And the one that we want to move towards is compassion. Compassion is the love child of empathy and action. And in coaching, what do? We're action oriented. We're focused forward. So we really want to employ that. And of course, a huge piece of what we learn in trauma-informed coaching is how do we cultivate that emotional regulation? How do we learn your calm? How do we go understand the places our clients go? And that method of how we involve them in where they can find their regulation. And of course, we do that within good self-care and boundaries, knowing our healthy edges, if you will. And all of us work within the field of values and beliefs. Beliefs are those things that we believe to be true but aren't, and values are those things that are intrinsic to us. And when we have a really solid understanding of those things within coaching, within trauma, then we are working towards controlling actions. What's that? It's regulating the nervous system. We understand what's important. What are those? They're the things that anchor us outside of the trauma, because trauma makes us feel like our body has denied us sometimes. It reacts when we don't know. And we also have things such as better planning, this anchor, making solid decisions, forward, value focused. So values and beliefs are heavily involved in trauma-informed coaching. And I know some coaches do incredibly large swaths of values work. And I think it's valuable here, no pun intended, with trauma-informed coaching, because it gives a foundation for clients to understand what they're drawn towards. Moral injury is when one of our values have been pushed against. We see that with military service industries where they come back, where they've had to do things that they've been told to do, but necessarily their values don't align with it. We see that in people coming back from war, from doing police work, from doing all kinds of things that internally they don't agree with it, but they do it because it's part of their work. And that's referred to as a moral injury. And that's because of the value and belief system that they hold has been pushed against. So it's very interesting when we think about that, when we have these opportunities to see what's happening within our clients and to bring an awareness about these things. Trauma work starts with awareness. Sorry, Barry, go ahead.
Hey, Brad, I just wanted to say clearly in something really tough like, the military and the bombs going on, I see this in I see this a lot in clients in companies. It doesn't align. It's not as severe, if you will, or
Yep.
radical, but it's like, they're not going to tell me go shoot somebody. That's not. But they're going to say, sorry, you can't be at you, or you have to do this tonight. Sorry that your kid's 5 years old today. It's his birthday, which is your value. I got to be with them. Sorry, we've got this big project, and there's this give and take, and then they do it for years, and it's this. I can see it's a little minor imprint, and then they just get this little.
Absolutely.
So I just want to say it's very clear to me that, like, if somebody was in a war torn, but it's like this is a little more hidden in a way. Do you find the same thing?
Well, it's interesting. I love that you're saying that because it's back to your original question about how we determine trauma. And it's like my perception of what my war field is. So it's like, here's this person going to work every day and they think they're walking across a bomb field. And it's like everything that they're doing.
Right?
Yeah, everything that they're doing to support their family and their values and beliefs so that they have a good life. And here they are giving their biggest piece of their day to something that they're not value or belief centered on. We see people do it all the time. People talk, we have generations of going, I can't wait to retire. And it's kind of like we should have generations of people that don't want to retire because they enjoy their work so much. So it's like it's easy to see. So yeah, I agree, Barry. It's like what is coming up, and it is a moral injury, right? We hear it all the time in people, and of course, what happens? They're exhausted because they've been showing up on the stage of life the way that they think that other people want to see them, and that's very exhausting to our authentic self, if you will. But that's a whole other topic, and I won't go down that alley. Yeah. So yes, for sure. These metaphorically, we see this same thing happening in our lives all the time. So very interesting. Good connection there for sure. I don't want to overwhelm you all, but I would love to take an opportunity if anyone would like to work on a shift from an imprint that might be coming up for them. And we can do a quick little, I could talk, but sometimes demos can be so valuable. So if anyone would like to play demo with me, I would be happy to do that. And I can only take one of you, so don't everyone jump. Miriam, fantastic. Why did I?
Guinea pig as usual.
That's fantastic. So what I'd like to do is just take a few moments and you and I can maybe work together. And I want to demonstrate a little bit about how we work. My hope is that it'll come across as how I do my work in trauma-informed coaching. It's always difficult to manifest something that is going to demo well, but you know what? I always live in hope. So what I'd like to do is just start this by asking if you feel nice and safe in this environment.
I hope so.
How could you make yourself feel sure?
Well, if it were just you and me, I would feel sure, but having all these other people is a different story. But yeah, I'm willing to do it. I'm very good with it.
Would you like to go to my picture and just click on the 3 little dots and pin me? And that way it'll just be me talking to you.
Sure.
So just pin me so it's just you and I talking, and that way everyone else will go to the wayside for us.
All righty then. Thank you. I do that anyway when I work.
Oh, perfect. Then you know the routine.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go ahead and pin you for me so that I have your undivided attention. How are you today?
I'm good. I've been, as I said earlier, doing this deep dive for the last 2.5 months. I thought what I had was ADD, and then a spiritual master that I work with said, nah, it's trauma. So so I've been like going to town with all of this.
Oh, interesting. That sounds wonderful.
Mhm.
The exploration of who we are is always a value, I think.
Mhm.
Um, I want to just invite you for a demo today. If you had any habit or behavior that you kind of wish you no longer had, and maybe we could have a look at that, or something that no longer serves you.
Well, I have one behavior that I have, but I'm not sure if it's trauma. And then I have another behavior that I have that I'm positive is trauma, but I'm less sure of, I'm learning how that's showing up.
Okay.
Can I share both briefly and then we can choose? Does that make sense?
If you want to share them, for sure.
Okay. Um, I grew up with a mother who was physically handicapped,
Mhm.
and I felt like, and my parents had a lot of stuff going on. I'll get into it here. They were Holocaust survivors. They had borderline personality disorder. It was complex, definitely complex. And one of the aspects of their rigidity and their wound was that I couldn't wait to get out of that house. I was an only child. I couldn't wait to get out of that household. And
Mm.
I came out of it, I think, with my fists up. I think I came out of it feeling like, out of my way, I'm coming through. I live in Tucson now. I've been living here for the last 2 years. I'm surrounded by people on walkers and, wheelchair, I'm surrounded by old people. And my parents, from as far back as I can remember them, were old. They were ancient to me. So when I see anyone near me who is old and slow, I'm like, fuck you, out of my way. I'm coming through. I don't
Mhm.
know if that's trauma. So that's one. And the other is that with their wound, they were constantly screaming at me with this borderline personality thing where they'd open their mouths and all this shit would come out.
Okay.
So, they're, treating me like I was inept and, stupid and had no worth. So either one, I'm fine with either one because I'm working my way through both. Your
Okay.
choice.
Well, actually, it's your choice. And what I want to ask you is, so if you could make a shift today on either of those, which one do you think would be the most important?
Well, I don't know about the most important. The one that is most present on a day-to-day basis is being around people who might be my age or older, but who are infirm and who are, by my standards, old in their ways, slow, and, the reactiveness that I have around people who aren't quick, who aren't moving quickly, who resemble my parents and their disabilities.
Okay. So what would you rather be? So if you could change that particular irritation, what would you rather feel around these people?
Patient, loving, gentle. It's painful to me to be in a state of reactiveness. And it's Tucson is a retirement community. I came here because my spiritual community is here and there are other things here for me. But I am surrounded by these people on a day-to-day basis. And I'd like to be in a place of greater acceptance, knowing full well I don't know where my body's going to be at down the line. So I'd like to be in a place that is more understanding, has more empathy, more allowing. I also managed my mother's care for 19 years. So, and she was in that place, so she died 9 years ago. So, and clearly I've got emotions with it.
I love emotions. They mean we're human.
Mhm.
So if we were to look at this thing that you referred to as acceptance for the time that we're working together today, would that be a good use of our time?
Sure.
Okay. So when you think of acceptance, what does that mean to you?
It means being in neutrality. It means allowing. It means not wanting to knock them down like bowling pins. It
What's
means
coming up for you there? I see some emotion coming up for you. What's coming up?
what's coming up is the out of my way I'm coming through. That seeing people that are old and infirm and slow and debilitated as obstacles to me.
So if I were to ask you around the out of my way I'm coming through, what's attached to that?
A sense of push, a sense of anger, a sense of being held back in my life, in my childhood, a sense of creating space for myself, creating breathing room, creating a freeway where I can go at my own speed and not have interference, not have blockage.
Blockage. So if you were moving at your own speed and you didn't have blockage and you were coming from a space of acceptance, who would be responsible for that?
I would, for sure.
And who would you be if you were coming from this place of acceptance with your patience and your loving kindness and your gentleness?
It would be a more enlightened and more allowing and more expansive and more spiritualized path. I wouldn't be in this childhood, young space of still being in my parents' household.
So if I may ask a question, have you compartmentalized the child?
Tell me more about that.
So where's this child you're talking about?
Well, she comes present in that situation. She springs into action like she thinks she's protecting me and defending me. She's doing what I was unable to do in that early in my childhood environment. There was no getting my family parents out of the way. So
what,
go ahead.
what does she want?
Freedom, space, not feeling controlled, not feeling held back, not feeling limited. Not feeling boxed in.
What does that have to do with patient, loving, and gentle?
Nothing. They're two separate camps.
So where does this child live?
Clearly in my head and my emotions and my body.
So have you notified her that you want to come from a place of acceptance and patience?
She
And
doesn't fucking care. She
And
has her way.
and does that serve you in your life?
No.
So what do you want to do about that?
I want to sit with her in a room and have a talking to with her.
And what would you say to her?
That I'm the grown-up, that I'm her mom, that I'm taking care of her, and that She's behaving badly.
Why
And
do
that,
we usually behave badly?
well, badly is, badly not from a judgmental place, but badly like not appropriate for now. For then it was a human and understandable response to the situation where she felt boxed in and she wanted to be a free spirit. But now she is a free spirit. Now she's not boxed in. And so when she comes into that situation, she calls forward the past. And that doesn't serve her.
I'm very curious about why you think she needs to call forward the past. What is there that's left in that past that we can bring to the here and now that worked then?
I'm not really sure how to answer that because I kind of go a little bluey with all that.
Okay. What if
It's
you were sure how to answer it? What would you say?
um, I just know what's present for me, and what's present is just that she's young, that she doesn't know any better, that she's using the tools that she had, but now she needs love, she needs compassion, she needs empathy.
Do you love her and have compassion and empathy for her?
For sure.
Have you let her know that?
I'm doing that right now.
Take a few moments and let her know. And what might happen if you invite her to come here with you instead of staying back there?
I'm imagining myself holding her hand and walking with her and containing her in a loving way,
And then,
in a protective way,
so you're letting her know.
letting her know that I'm with her and that I'm the grown-up and that I'm her mom and that I'm holding for her and that she's not alone as she was back then,
And how does
that
that? Mhm.
and I have her back.
Nice. And how does that make you feel?
Like it's been a missing piece.
Mm. And how does it make her feel?
Like I've got her back, which is what she's wanted all along.
So her reactions are because she needs someone to have her back.
She had no protector
Mm.
at
And
time.
what does she have now?
She has me and all my tools.
And what do you want to give her?
Lots of love, lots of protection, lots of understanding, lots of compassion and empathy. And and to let her know that she's smart, that what she did at that time and what she's been doing up until now was fighting for her life, and that she doesn't have to do that anymore.
So what might happen moving forward from this point that you're both together, she's safe, and that you're going to give her loving kindness?
Just coming into a newly evolved relationship with her.
And how do you feel about having that?
A little tentative, um, but I've been working with her, and she understands that I'm a way better mom than the mom she had growing up.
So what might get in your way?
Forgetting to hold her hand.
And how will she be able to remind you of that?
What came forward was by tapping me on the shoulder and saying, "Here I am,"
It sounds nice.
or the arm, because she can't reach that high.
So how might you bring that to the here and now for yourself so when you need it, you can be reminded?
Well, I'm doing an NLP thing right now, which is just holding her hand and
Okay.
reminding myself that way. So as a prompt.
What's your takeaway from having done this work on yourself?
That it's really, really helpful that that it brings together a lot of different things. It brings together my NLP work. It brings together my inner child work. It brings together my coaching skills. That I still don't know if what that experience was as a kid was traumatic, but just that I was in reaction from it, and that wasn't serving me, and that older people can be nice. They don't have to be like my parents were. And I can graduate from that old expression.
Yeah. What might happen if you didn't have to know and you just realize that older people can be nice? What would that change?
Well, that was my thought as I was saying it, that it doesn't matter if it was traumatic or not, that what matters is that I can get to the other side of it. That's really the bottom line. Always been the bottom line.
Thank you so much for helping me demo this. You were a complete pleasure.
I'll tell my little one that.
Well, I think she's here with us, so let her know.
Yes, she is. Thank you.
Thank you. So, let's see. As we think about some of the conversation that we've had today, you know, it's always such a pleasure to have someone that is available for us to do some of this work. And I really want to monitor my time here with you. So thinking about trauma informed, are there any other questions or insights that you guys want to share with me? And I want to really thank Miriam for doing that demo with us. 15 minutes is sometimes a little bit less than we ever want to have, but it's always fun to be able to do some work. So any questions or insights? Sylvia, thank you.
Hello, thank you for that demo. That was really helpful, and thank you, Miriam, for sharing your vulnerability.
So beautiful.
So Brad, I have a question. So I'm really appreciating this coaching approach, right? With this trauma informed. At what point, or how do you tell if someone needs somebody else other than a coach, right? I mean, they can have a coach and they can also have a therapist or whatever, right? When is the good time, or how do we tell?
Yeah, we ask the client. That's what I do. So I try to leave some of that. I try to stay out of the judgment position as much as I can. So I ask the client if I feel like I'm out of my wheelhouse. Like I flat out, I have transparency. I'm not sure that what we're working on right now is something that is in my wheelhouse. Might you consider another professional? And I agree with you too, Sylvia, because we work quite a bit in the work that we do with other professional psychologists, psychiatrists, counselors, and that. But I always leave it to the client. And the reason I do that is because if we've done really good, deep work with them, we don't want to break the trust and rapport that's there, because sometimes that can take a long time. But I really ask them that question. So no different than how we coach. It's bringing the awareness. You know, I want you to know that this is out of my field and this is not what I do. And I'll support you in finding someone that might be able to work with you in a way that's going to better support what's coming up for you. How do you feel about that?
So thank you, Brett. But how do you know that this is really like not in your wheelhouse, right? I mean, is it like they're stuck in the past, they're not willing to be present, they're not willing to, you know, uh, look, at the awareness or the, basically not doing the dance with you, right? Or,
I got it.
you
So
know,
part of it is that we don't look at the client, we look at ourselves, whether or not it's in our wheelhouse, because only I can answer what's in my wheelhouse, the client can't. So if I don't feel comfortable, then I know that this is out of my scope. The other thing, though, that I want to point to, of course, is that the ICF has a complete when to refer and how to do that. And it's interesting because I've talked to them a little bit about since the pandemic, how that looks, because if you read the what we have right now for when to refer, some of it is also behavior that we've seen through the pandemic: exhaustion, fatigue, stress, anxiety, all of the things that happen when we've been put into these places. So I guess the best way for me to answer that question is that if you do not feel comfortable working with the client and what's coming up for them, then I would say that would be a sign to me to refer. Yeah, but I don't have any hard, fast answers on it because I work in post-traumatic stress and couples and anxiety and recovery and drug abuse and all of that myself, and human trafficking. So for me, I'm familiar with that area and it's what I like to do. So, but that, again, it's only because of my internal feelings. If someone is, and of course, we have full, in our work, in our training, we cover how to work in suicide areas, how to work with people that might need to be put into a different category of assistance. So it's an excellent question. I get asked it all the time, and it's really a self-searching question for me. So I don't know how helpful that was.
thank you, Brett. Thank you.
No hard rule, unfortunately. Any other questions or insights? Okay. My silent rivers, I call you. So what I'd like to do is thank you very much for letting me step into this space with you. I'm really happy to have had the opportunity. We have lots of courses. I would be interested in you having a look on our website, seeing if you could generate conversations with us about things. But the one thing I do want to do is just let you know, if you would like to receive the particular slide deck that we've just gone through, and also our company offers to our ICF members a code to get $250 off any of the trainings we do. So trauma-informed relationship coaching, trauma-informed certified coaching, trauma-informed group coaching will be our latest one. So any of those that you might be interested in, or any of the other programs that we offer, please feel free to send us an email or look at some of what is in the website. And I'm just putting my contact information in here for you. Please reach out, and we are happy to send you any of this information, but also I'll be happy to send you these particular slides if you enjoyed that today. Let's see, I don't know if that's going to work. It probably won't work for me, so. And I'm going to hand this back over to Catherine.
What an amazing presentation. Thank you so much. Very informative, as I thought it would be. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and really just this deeply needed information with us. I want to thank Kathy. Thank you for your presence. Thank you for your support here today. And thank you for your long-term contribution and commitment to the ICF LA chapter. Kathy has been around, I think, for like 11 years. So thank you. And then notably, I want to also thank you, Miriam. Thank you for your vulnerability. Thank you for your transparency and such a beautiful and graceful job at some hard work. So I want to acknowledge you and just say thank you for helping us to see what trauma-informed coaching actually looks like. This concludes today's ICFLA webinar with Brad Hardie. Thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you, everyone. Pleasure to meet you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Brad. Great presentation.
Thank you.